The manager didn't even look at him properly. That was the first mistake. The bank was busy glass walls, polished floors, low murmurs of money moving from one place to another. People in suits, people who belonged. And then, him. A man in a worn-out jacket stood quietly near the loan counter. His shoes were old, clean but tired, like they'd walked too many miles without rest. He waited. 5 minutes passed. 10. The manager finally glanced up and frowned. "Sir," he said loudly enough for others to hear, "this counter is for loan applicants." The man nodded politely. "Yes, that's why I'm here." A few customers looked up. The manager's eyes traveled slowly from the man's shoes to his jacket, then back to his face. "And what exactly are you applying for?" he asked, already smiling. "A business loan," the man replied. That smile grew sharper. The manager leaned back in his chair. "Do you have an appointment?" "No." "Collateral?" "Yes." That made the manager laugh. Not cruelly. Worse, casually. A woman in line shifted uncomfortably. A man near the door smirked. The manager waved his hand. "Sir, loans of this size require assets, proof, history." "I have all of that," the man said calmly. The manager shook his head. "Let's not waste everyone's time." The words landed heavy. The man didn't argue, didn't raise his voice. He simply reached into his jacket and placed a thin folder on the counter. "Please," he said, "just have someone look at it." The manager didn't touch the folder. Instead, he slid it back toward the man with one finger. "We're not a charity." Silence. That word charity did something to the room. A loan officer, sitting 2 desks away, looked up, younger, quieter. He'd been listening without meaning to. The man at the counter inhaled once. Slowly. "May I at least submit the application?" he asked. The manager sighed, exaggerated. "Sir, I'm trying to save you embarrassment." The loan officer frowned. The manager continued. "People like you usually don't understand." He stopped, because the loan officer was now standing. "I'll take it," the loan officer said. The manager turned sharply. "What?" "I'll review the file," the officer repeated, reaching for the folder. The manager scoffed. "You're serious?" The loan officer nodded. "Yes." The manager shrugged. "Fine, but don't say I didn't warn you." The officer opened the folder, and then he stopped breathing for half a second. His eyes moved across the page, down, then back up. He swallowed. The manager noticed. "What is it?" he asked. "Nothing," the officer said quickly. Too quickly. The man at the counter watched him, not with hope, but with expectation. The officer flipped the page. His fingers trembled. The manager leaned forward now. "Is there a problem?" The officer didn't answer. He turned the folder slightly away from the manager. That's when the atmosphere changed. The smirks faded. The whispers stopped. Something was wrong, but not with the poor man. Before we go any further, comment below. Was the manager being honest, or just judging by appearance? The officer finally looked up at the man, and for the first time since he walked in, someone showed him respect. "If this is real," the officer whispered, "everything changes." The manager laughed. "Don't be dramatic." But the officer was already standing. "Sir," he said to the man quietly, "who told you to come here?" The man met his eyes and answered with one sentence, a sentence that made the officer step back. If you want to know what happens next, and why the manager suddenly went silent, subscribe, because the truth hadn't even been spoken yet. The file that changed the room. The loan officer didn't sit back down. That alone was strange. He remained standing, eyes fixed on the open folder, as if the paper might move if he looked away. His fingers pressed harder against the edge, knuckles whitening. The manager noticed. "What is it?" he asked again, irritation creeping into his voice. "Is there a problem with the paperwork?" The loan officer swallowed. "No, the paperwork is complete." That wasn't the answer the manager expected. "Then why are you standing like that?" he snapped. The officer hesitated. His eyes flicked toward the black man at the counter, then back to the folder. "There are notes here," he said carefully. "Notes?" The manager scoffed. "From who?" The officer didn't answer right away. He turned a page. The room seemed to lean in with him. A customer near the door stopped scrolling on his phone. The woman in line folded her arms, watching openly now. The officer's breathing slowed. Controlled, professional. But his eyes told a different story. "This application wasn't submitted today," he said. The manager rolled his eyes. "Of course it wasn't. These things get bounced around all the time." "No," the officer replied. "I mean, it was reviewed, approved, then flagged, and reopened." The word approved echoed. The manager straightened. "Approved by who?" The officer glanced at the screen beside him. His fingers hovered over the keyboard, then pulled back, as if touching it might trigger something irreversible. "By regional," he said quietly. The manager laughed once, sharp, nervous. "Regional doesn't approve walk-ins." The black man spoke for the first time since the folder opened. "I didn't walk in," he said calmly. "I was sent." The manager turned on him instantly. "By who?" The man didn't answer. The loan officer cleared his throat. "There's more." He turned the folder again. His eyes widened just slightly. The manager leaned forward now. "You're making this dramatic for no reason." The officer shook his head. "There's a second file attached." "Attached?" The manager frowned. "Yes, internal." That word shifted everything. Internal files weren't for customers. They weren't for counters. They were for audits, reviews, investigations. The officer lowered his voice. "It references 3 branches." The manager's smile faded. "What kind of reference?" The officer hesitated again. "Then, complaints." The room went quiet. The manager scoffed. "Everyone gets complaints." "Not like this," the officer said. The black man at the counter remained, still, patient, almost, detached like he'd seen this moment before. The officer scrolled further. His hands started to shake. "If this is accurate," he said softly, "then this loan isn't about money." The manager snapped, "Then what is it about?" The officer looked up. "It's about patterns." That word hung heavy. The manager laughed again, but this time no one joined him. A man in a suit near the waiting area shifted his weight. The woman in line took a step back, eyes flicking between the manager and the man at the counter. The officer straightened. "I need to call compliance." The manager slammed his hand on the desk. "Absolutely not." That sudden burst of anger startled everyone. "You're overstepping," the manager said sharply. "Close the file." The officer didn't move. The manager lowered his voice. "You don't know who you're dealing with." The black man met his eyes. "I do," he said quietly. The officer looked between them, then back at the screen, and for the first time he realized this man hadn't come to ask for a loan. He'd come to test the system. "Before we go any further, like this video if you've ever seen someone judged before they were heard." The officer closed the folder gently, almost respectfully. "I can't process this," he said. The manager smirked. "Finally." "Because," the officer continued, "this file requires a witness." The manager frowned. "Witness to what?" The officer turned to the black man and asked the one question that made the manager's face drain of color. "Sir," he said carefully, "are you here as a customer or as an investigator?" The man didn't answer right away. He simply reached into his jacket and pulled out a second ID, the truth that ended the room. The room didn't move, not when the man reached into his jacket, not when he calmly placed the second ID on the counter, not even when the loan officer leaned forward to read it. The manager did. He leaned too quickly, then stopped. The color drained from his face. The loan officer read the badge once, twice, then looked up, slowly. His posture changed instantly. He straightened, stepped back from the counter, and said, loud enough for the entire branch to hear, "Sir, I didn't realize." The manager snapped, "Realize what?" The officer didn't answer him. He turned to the black man instead. "Would you like a private room?" The man shook his head. "No," he said calmly. "This is fine." Every customer was watching now. Phones down. Conversations dead. The manager laughed nervously. "This is ridiculous. You can't just—" The black man finally spoke again. His voice was steady, controlled, almost gentle. "My name is Daniel Carter," he said. "I work with the Federal Banking Compliance Division." Silence. I was assigned to this district 3 months ago. The loan officer swallowed hard. Daniel continued, "During that time, this branch was flagged multiple times." The manager shook his head. "That's not true." Daniel turned the ID slightly so everyone could see it. "Discriminatory lending patterns. Verbal misconduct. Selective application delays." Each word landed like weight. The manager opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Daniel looked at the people in line. Several customers here today were part of those reports. A woman near the door froze. The man in the suit stiffened. Daniel turned back to the counter. Today wasn't about a loan. He met the manager's eyes. It was about behavior. The loan officer spoke carefully. "Sir, should I call—" "Already done," Daniel said. At that moment, the front doors opened. 2 officials walked in. No rush, no announcement, just presence. The manager stepped back instinctively. Daniel slid the folder across the counter. "This conversation," he said, "was recorded, as were the last 4. The manager whispered, "You set me up." Daniel didn't raise his voice. "No," he said. "You showed who you were, without being asked." The officials approached. One of them spoke quietly to the manager. "We'll need you to come with us." The manager looked around. No one met his eyes. No one defended him. The room that once echoed with his authority now felt smaller than silence. As he was escorted away, Daniel turned to the loan officer. "You did the right thing," he said. The officer nodded, unable to speak. Daniel then faced the room. "Everyone here," he said, "will be contacted, and every application delayed unfairly will be reopened." No applause, no cheers, just stillness, because accountability doesn't need noise. Daniel picked up his jacket, adjusted it once, and walked toward the exit. Before the doors closed behind him, he paused and said one last thing. "Respect doesn't ask who you are." Then he left. The doors shut. The room stayed silent. If this moment meant something to you, comment your thoughts, and subscribe for stories where truth always speaks last.